Okay, so let's talk about milling and why that's an advantage for using the brew bag. When you set your mill as low as you possibly can, 0.020 for example, that creates circumstances that traditional brewers cannot create. They have to grind more coarse because otherwise that floury particles will go into their pickup no matter what it is, no matter what they're using, a braided cord or the manifold that's either been sawn or drilled. And they don't want that to happen, obviously, because that clogs and then they can't get the wort out of the mash tun. That's a problem for everybody. So they grind somewhere between 30 and 40, and some even a little higher than that. But that doesn't optimize the extraction potential of the grain. So what they're really doing is they're grinding based on the equipment capability and not to optimize the potential of the grain. When you use a fabric filter, you get all of the advantages that you can't get when you have any other sort of system. So in a typical sparge system, the grain bed acts as the filter. It's in effect a sediment filter. And what's underneath, what's called the bottom pickup, is in fact simply a surface or an area for the wort to travel through to get out of the mash tun and into the boil kettle. Some folks make manifolds, some folks use braided cords, and they don't have any problems with them, and they shouldn't have any problems with them because they understand how to use them. And that means that they grind a little finer, they pull off wort very slowly, they set the grain around the pickup, they put that back on top, the rest of the sparge water goes through the sediment filter, the grain bed, and it filters very cleanly, and out it goes, right? And that works effectively. I'm not saying anything wrong with that at all. What I am saying is, when you use a fabric filter, you optimize every other process because you can. So because you're using a true filter, 0.0083, that's 83 thousandths of an inch, and your mill is set to 20 hundredths of an inch, you don't have to worry about any of those particulates getting sucked into or going through the pickup because the bag filters all of that away. So you literally can optimize all of your processes. What that means is you're going to grind to 020, for example. You're going to get really floury bits. Everything's going to be very, very fine. Water to grain contact is going to be as high as it possibly can. That also means you're going to convert more thoroughly and you're going to convert faster. So that means you either cut a piece of grain in half or you cut it into 1,000 pieces. If you want to expose that grain to water, you want to cut it in 1,000 pieces. If you cut it in half and let it soak, it's going to take considerably more time. And the interior of the grain itself is not going to get affected by the water for 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 minutes. I've never done it, I don't really know, but I can tell you if I had 1,000 pieces of grain from one as opposed to two, those 1,000 pieces are going to get touched by water immediately as opposed to having to soak up the water. That's sort of the difference between a 0.20 and a 0.45 or whatever the case may be. And I'm exaggerating when I say cutting one in half in 1,000 pieces, but the point is, the more endosperm you expose to water, the faster and more thorough the conversion. What does that mean to you? That means you maybe can convert in 35 to 40 minutes as opposed to 60 to 70 minutes. There are guys out there that tell you that they get greater conversion or efficiency when they go 60 to 90 minutes or they go 90 minutes. I got to tell you, we should all know this is kind of basic science. What we put in the kettle is finite. It has an end. It doesn't it doesn't go on and on and on. So there's only so much starch available. Once that starch has been converted, time is not going to increase the availability of the starch. So once you get to 60 minutes or 70 minutes, whatever the case may be, you might pick up a point or two, but past 60 minutes, it's just not going to happen. And you can test that yourself by taking readings along the way. Once you get to 60 minutes, 70 minutes, 80 minutes, whatever the case, if you have a refractometer, do those readings, take those tests, find out what you're really doing when you convert. And I think you're going to find that adding that 30 minutes is really inconsequential to the actual efficiency that you're going to transfer into the boil kettle. So the basic steps for making this happen in a brew bag is simply to heat the strike water, whatever your system is telling you to do. You'll have to figure that out for yourself because everybody's a little different. Mill the grain, insert the bag and clip it on, add the grain, stir it really, really well, make sure that there's no clumps or spots, make sure it's turning over on a consistent basis, and then take a temperature reading, 4 or 5 places, dip it literally in 4 or 5 places so that you can see if there's any hot spots. There shouldn't be if you stirred well enough. You're gonna put the cover on the kettle, insulate it. We did this with some duct wrap and a moving blanket, and walk away for 60 minutes. And the reason you can walk away for 60 minutes and be sure that you're going to be fully converted is because you optimized your grain for conversion by grinding it to 0.020 or 0.0, whatever, as low as you can get it to be, right? So once this is done mashing, we're going to remove the insulation. We're going to hook up the bag to the pulley. We're going to lift this. We're going to let it drain mostly, and then we're going to squeeze the bag. And we're going to squeeze the bag a lot. Squeezing the bag and tannins are not synonymous. You cannot create tannins by squeezing grain. Tannins are derived when the pH gets above 5.8 and at mash temperatures. It cannot occur any other way. And by the way, there are tannins in every beer. Excess tannins are what people refer to when they say, when you squeeze the bag, you're going to get tannins in your beer. There's tannins in every single batch of wort that you make. Excess is the key word. And the only way that you get excess tannins is when you have a pH over 5.8 at mash temperatures. That's the only way it can happen. We're going to dump those grains, and we're going to use that bag for our hop bag as well. So we're not using a hop sock because hop socks constrict the hops. Hops absorb 7 ounces of water per ounce, and they expand to 4 times their size. So if you put 2 or 3 ounces of hops in a normal beer, when you pull that hop sock out or that hop bag out, you're going to notice that it is a big bag of mush. I can't prove this. I don't know this, and I don't know anybody can, because IBUs can't be tested to that degree without any sort of laboratory. But I can tell you that free-floating hops are certainly exposed to more water and more opportunity for isomerization than if they are not free-floating. So if you took all your hops and you stuffed them in a bag and you dropped them into your kettle, the opportunity for agitation due to boiling and all of that, it goes away in a big way. And in some cases, I've seen guys put so many hops in their kettles, and when they pull it out, it's dry in the center. That's a clue that we're really not optimizing the way we can. So I'll show you how we're going to use our hops. Let's imagine that we just dumped our grain and we rinsed it, and now we've got our hop bag or we've got our grain bag in our hand. This is called a copper spreader. It's my invention. It's a pretty complicated thing, right? It literally is 3/8 inch pipe that I simply turned the ends up on. I hammered it so that it is sealed so nothing gets inside. I wrapped it with some copper wire. I don't know if you can see that, but I wrapped it with copper wire to prevent it from moving. And when we get ready to use this for our hop bag, we're just going to insert this into the bag and lower it into the kettle. So the center is the center. We turn it upside down. Right? And there you have the filter for your hops. They're going to free float just like they would if you put them right into the kettle. But the difference is when we pull this up and we let it drain, we capture all of that wort. So we don't have a gallon or a gallon and a half, or our plate chiller doesn't clog, or we're wasting wort in the bottom, because there is the separation that occurs when you lift the hop bag and let it drain. You get all that wort. If you're a nano brewer, if you're a small commercial brewer, this can save you a lot of time and a lot of money. Let me say that a different way. This can produce a whole lot of beers that go into a glass at retail sales, as opposed to getting stuck in your boil kettle because you can't get them out. And I'm talking about a lot. If you waste 3, 5, 7 gallons, or in some cases, if you waste 20, 30, 50 gallons, you can use this to filter your hops and get those beers onto the counter for retail sales.